All right, that sounds good. Thank you, and welcome everybody. Appreciate you taking the time to join. Um, quick introduction on myself. I'm Jeremy Smith, the CEO and co-founder of Pega6. Uh, just quick history on me, and then we'll dive into the interesting stuff. I've been a C-level executive at four different startups. One didn't work out so well, went into bankruptcy. Um, Other two had successful exits. And then the fourth one, I left to found Pega6, where we are creating the future of higher ed, which then leads us back to our motto of fuck college. And the reason that we say that, the reason I believe that for 10, 20 years, is because the university system is broken. And it's really these three numbers here that explain why it is, which is that college, for I'm sure many of you who have been looking at it, and as you maybe have seen and read in a bunch of places now, as it seems to be more and more people are realizing how broken college is that it's 4 years, over $100,000 on average, and you come out essentially unskilled and unready for whatever job it is that you might go take. And that is not a system that works for anybody. I experience the same thing. Everyone I know experienced the same thing. And so what we're doing now with Pega6 is, oh, right. And I should also mention that now you can throw on an added thing of the entry-level jobs are starting to disappear. As I'm sure many of you are aware, more and more companies have been slowing down their hiring of entry-level jobs in general, or because they're starting to use AI rather than hiring entry levels. And so that is a system that is irreparably broken. And with Pega6, we've built a better model to compete with universities, something that is superior to universities. And so, what, in short, Pega6 career accelerators are is each accelerator is 1 year, 15K. Each accelerator is focused on a single career path, and it is 100% experiential learning. So no textbooks, no lectures, no tests, simply learning the job by doing the job. That is how this form of higher education that we're creating works. And when you graduate after 1 year and 15K, you come out as an AI first product builder. And I'll explain what that is in a little bit. That's this new emerging job of the AI age. But you come out as an AI first product builder who is job ready. In fact, you're the equivalent of a second or third year employee from day one of your first job. And for this coming cohort this fall, we have, which is our inaugural cohort, we have the job guarantees for everybody. And I'll explain what that is a little bit later as well. Or actually, no, I'll explain that right now. So with the job guarantees, the way that it works is by the day you graduate, 1 year after the 1 year program, you will have a guaranteed job offer. Or if for whatever reason you don't, you'll receive 100% refund of the tuition. And as it relates to these guarantees and why we feel so comfortable with that is before we went out to start recruiting students for our first cohort, we've been reaching out to employers to get them to guarantee jobs for our inaugural class. And so here are a couple of the companies who have given the corporate guarantees. ranging in size from multi-billion-dollar companies to Series A startups, but all tech companies. And we have about 75% of the guarantees locked up. We're in the process of locking up the final 25%. But like I said, whether if you have a guaranteed job at the end or if you don't, you get a full refund. And these are a number of other companies who have not guaranteed jobs, but have said, no, we'll absolutely hire Pega6 grads. We love what you're doing, and your grads are what we're looking for. So that's the job guarantee. Something I had mentioned a little earlier in terms of coming out an AI-first product builder, that may not be a term that many of you are familiar with because it is a relatively new, still emerging role out there that is being sort of driven by the developments in AI. And so what a product builder is, probably the best way I can describe it, is it's sort of 2 parts software engineer, 2 parts product manager, 1 part product designer, and 1 part business operations. And then what companies are doing or wanting with this role, or what one can do as a product builder, really, it's almost limitless in terms of the options. There are companies who want product builders to work on the product, right? Work on the product that they are building for their customers that's generating revenue for them. Interestingly, there are other product builders, other companies who want product builders, but they want to point them internally to interact with all of the departments within the organization and use their product brain and their engineering skills to develop scalable solutions, AI agents, AI-enabled software, anything that you can in order to enable an organization to hyperscale. So your skills are so valuable, they say, you know what, let's sort of turn it and apply those skills on ourselves first, so the product builder can build the things we need to scale as a company. And then for those of you who don't want to work for other companies and you have your eye on building your own, the product builder skills are the perfect skill set for essentially laying the foundation for being an entrepreneur and building a company, because you have all of the skills that you really do want to start out with as an entrepreneur. The engineering skills, the product development skill, product management skills, design skills, and business operations. And so that is the product builder. So how do we do it? How is it that we can, in 1 year, turn you into the most valuable entry-level employee that has ever existed? So there are a couple of things. I mentioned that it's entirely experiential learning, that there are no textbooks, no tests. You simply learn by doing. You learn to build software by building software. And that is, spending 50 hours a week for an entire year building software in cross-functional teams. And that's how you master it. That's how you master any skill, is just by doing it. And what that looks like is this. And this is sort of a visual overview of our curriculum, where there are a dozen different product builds that you'll be doing over the course of the year. Each product build starting out sort of short and simple, and then the builds increasing in both duration and sophistication over the course of the year. And then, as you can see, kind of some hackathons to spread your wings, sort of sprinkled in between some of the product builds. And it is through this, building these different types of products for different types of users with different languages and tools and frameworks and practices. This is how you gain mastery. This is how you lap any university graduate that exists today or honestly has ever existed. Is because when you come out, you will have spent almost 2,500 hours building professional grade software in cross-functional teams. And nobody in the world has that sort of experience coming out of post-secondary education. And what this does is it turns you into this person. This is the resume, a 2-page resume. And obviously, we're not going to go through this. It's incredibly detailed. But just to give you a sense, this is the resume that each of you would graduate with. This is what you will look like, the skills you will have mastered, the industry standard tools and the AI tools that you will have mastered by spending almost 2,500 hours building software. And this is what employers want. They don't want somebody who's coming out and has no idea how to do the job they've been hired for. In decades past, they were fine training us as we all entered the workforce, not knowing what to do. But that's changed. Employers have been tired of it for a while, and now with AI emerging, they've said, you know what? We don't need to train college grads anymore. We can just use AI to do their jobs. This makes you better than AI. You are harnessing AI to make yourself a 10x, a 100x employee. And the way that I put it is, while robots can beat humans, the college grads, cyborgs can beat robots. And that's what we're creating with Pega6. That's what you graduate as, is a cyborg. And that is what employers want. Or again, if you're starting your own startup, that's the sort of skills that you need in order to succeed. Also, the learning environment is a hybrid environment where you spend 50% of your time, essentially every other day, in person, working with your teams to build the software. And then every other day, it's working remotely, still with your teams, still building that software. So it very much replicates a work environment. And to that point, where it's in person, our accelerators are based in Boulder, Colorado, gorgeous Boulder, Colorado. And where you work out of is not a school, is not classrooms, because what we're doing is we're replicating year one of employment so that you come out as a year 2, if not a year 3 employee. And so where Pega6 career accelerators are located is actually in the industrious co-working space in Boulder. So you're actually going to be in a work environment when building the software, these software applications with your teams. And then one other thing that we do is you'll come out with mastery of the technical skills for a product builder, with the soft skills, the professional skills on how to do everything you need to do to excel as a professional. But what we also do is we sprinkle in across the year the life skills that you need, as you transition into adulthood and start to live and eventually work on your own. And so these are types of things that we'll be sort of talking about and integrating into your experience, things like personal finance and understanding healthcare and healthcare plans that you'll be signing up for with employers. Home management, as you start to live on your own, tons of things that you've never thought of before become part of your life. And so you need to know how to do those things, or what those things are that you need to do. And then that's kind of the personal life skills. Also, we focus on professional life skills. So things like killing it at the interview, professional etiquette, professional networking, which is probably the most important skill that you can have outside of your ability to do the job. And so, like I said, in addition to the professional and technical skills, we do make sure you have the life skills when you leave as well. One thing sometimes people get us confused with when we talk about it is they're like, oh, you're like a boot camp. And as you can tell from the slide, we are not a boot camp. boot camps, one, they are made for career switchers, not graduating high school seniors, which is what Pega6 is designed for, right? It's an alternative to college. We're saying to graduating high school seniors, don't waste your time and money at college. Instead, come to a Pega6 career accelerator and you start your career 3 years earlier than a college grad, $280,000 ahead of where you would have been had you gone to college, and you're completely job ready. Boot camps dealt with career switchers and weren't really able to produce the results that they thought they could because it was too short and it wasn't intense enough. And so, just reiterating what I said a moment ago, we are a university replacement. We are a better alternative because you start 3 years earlier through this 1-year program, $280,000 ahead because it's a $15K tuition, and if you don't live in Boulder, it's probably around another $15K of living expenses. But after the first year, that's your total expenditure. Now you're starting working and earning while the college student is still accruing expenses and debt and going deeper and deeper into debt. So that by the end of those 4 years, they're $85,000, $100,000 or more in debt. And you've been making income for 3 years and have probably, if you even had to take out any debt, you probably paid it off already. And you emerge AI first and job ready. And we just opened up recruiting for our very first cohort, which we're launching in August of this year. So recruiting is now open for Pega6. And that is our motto. So with that, happy to open it up to any questions that anybody might have and kind of dig into things. And if there are no questions, but anyone, sorry, are there scholarships available? Sorry, let me pop open the comments there in case anyone's been, okay. Perfect. So I'll just take these in order. Do I have to have technical experience if I want to join? While that is helpful, it is not necessary. It's not necessary that you have a technical experience because by the end, you will have technical mastery, but you do not have to start with the technical experience. Are there any scholarships available? Currently, there are no scholarships available just because given the low cost relative to college and that it is a relatively easy education to finance given how concrete it is and short it is and how high paying it is. And I should say the product builders, even though the role is still emerging, if you look at what software developers and product managers are making coming right out of college, it's in the $85,000 to $90,000 a year range. And so we're expecting that product builders will be right around there. So essentially as a 19-year-old, after coming out of high school and 1 year at Pega6, you'll be making market rate, which again, we're anticipating is going to be around $90,000 a year. And so any loan you might take out, you'll be able to pay back in a year if you wanted, but in 2 or 3 years without any impact on lifestyle. Is there anything traditional colleges do better than Pega6? If they do, you compensate for that difference. I'm not sure exactly what's meant by compensating for the difference. Jerome, if you want to clarify, but I'll answer the question, is there anything traditional colleges do better than Pega6? This is almost going to sound disingenuous saying this, but no, they don't. Well, you know what? Maybe that's not true. Maybe they throw better fraternity parties. But other than that, there isn't. And that is not just trying to toot our own horn. If we have weaknesses or where we have weaknesses, we are always happy to talk about it. Transparency is key to us, as well as self-awareness. But the thing is, university it's broken, and everybody knows it. Parents, students, and employers know it. And so we have essentially designed this knowing what the broken model is and knowing what the right model looks like. Because we've been able to develop this from scratch, we've been able to develop something that doesn't have all of those weaknesses that universities have. So there really isn't anything that traditional colleges do better. There are things that they do that may not be necessary. There are things that they do, I'll say, like a liberal arts education or the subjects that are related to liberal arts. We don't do those. That's not part of our curriculum specifically. So you could say they do that better than us, but the truth is there are resources out there that do it better than college that we expose you to and give you access to. So in the end, you'll have a better exposure to a liberal arts education than you would going to college anyway. It's indirectly through us, but still you get better exposure to that through us. Who are the types of mentors? This is a great question. Who are the types of, they were all great questions, but who are the types of mentors who would teach/speak to students? Are they full-time Pega6 or more like guest speakers or lecturers? All right, so this question is excellent on a number of fronts. And it also speaks to something with colleges. Colleges have professors who have never worked or haven't worked for a long time. Largely, if they're teaching anything relevant, it is largely outdated. Or they have guest speakers come in who are not employees of the university and, again, may have industry experience, but again, it's just for that, that single course. It's still lecture and textbook, and test format. The way that we do it is your quote unquote teachers aren't really teachers because there are no lectures, there are no textbooks or tests. Instead, the way that it works is they are more like your manager or your proto boss, right? So we're like, okay, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to build a dating app, and you'll need to build the back end in Python and the front end in JavaScript. And, we're going to be using Cursor, for our IDE for this one, and, so on and so forth. And then we say, go. And you go with your team and you start building. And we let you go and we let you figure things out on your own with your team, with your AI co-pilot, until you hit what we call a failure point, which we love failure. Failure is a term that we absolutely embrace. And you will hit many failure points because that's how learning works. And as you hit that failure point where you just are stuck and cannot go any further because you just can't figure it out, whatever it is, that's when your manager, the proto boss, steps in and gives you, a 90-second coach up or a 5-minute whiteboarding session, or just like would happen at work, get you unstuck and off you go again. And those people are full-time employees of Pega6. And in fact, for the first probably 3 cohorts, it's going to be my 2 co-founders who will be your bosses. And again, I say bosses more in quotes because you're not an employee of Pega6, but in terms of your experience for that entire year, they will feel like your bosses. And so Ryan Townsend is our Chief Technology Officer, co-founder, and Cody McDonald, she is our Chief Product Officer, co-founder. And Ryan has been doing software development for 20 years. The last 5 to 10 as a CTO at different companies, large companies, startups as well. And Cody has been in product management for over 15 years, also at large companies like Amazon and Dish Network, but at startups, at tech startups as well. And so they will be your bosses for those of you who would make it into the first cohort, or the first couple of cohorts. So I think most of you are seniors or older. Is there, and I believe I said it, but I'll just repeat it. And they are full-time. Obviously the founders are, but even in future cohorts years out, there will always be people from industry that we hire out of their job as a product manager or a software developer, or whatever it might be. As we launch more and more accelerators for more career paths, we will hire them out of industry to come and be at Pega6. What belief about education did you have when you first started making Pega6 that you've since changed your mind about? That's an interesting question. So I'll rewind it even a little further, which is I first had the idea for Pega6 and career accelerators more generally 15 years ago. But the market was just not ready yet for this idea. As I talked to people, yeah, they thought college was too expensive back then, but everyone still believed in college and that it was valuable. But then around 5 years ago, and when I had that idea, I'll say, because it gets to the answer to your question, I used to go to Washington, D.C. every 3 weeks or so to talk to different House representatives or senators or different government agencies, and for reasons that don't really matter. But they asked me, they said, hey, with the student loan crisis, because there was a student loan crisis even 15 years ago, they said, what could we do to solve that? Do we bring down interest rates? Do we forgive the loans? What do we do? And I said to them, look, none of that will work. Anything that you do to reduce the cost of college, colleges will increase their prices to match. Like, oh, college is half as expensive for students now, we'll double our prices then. And that's what they've done. I said, the only way that you can get colleges to bring prices down is to create a competitor. It has to be competition. And it can't just be another university, because they'll do the same thing the same way at the same price. It has to be something different. And that's when the idea for career accelerators just popped into my head right there, almost fully formed. And I just got up and I whiteboarded it out in front of them and said, this is what competes with universities. And so to answer your question, as over the last 5 years, the market has shifted, and a huge number of students, parents, and employers have said, no, universities they just don't add any value. This isn't, forget the cost, which is ridiculous and too much. Even if it were free, it's not worth it, because they're not doing anything of any value. And so I was like, okay, I dusted off the Pega6 idea and I said, it's time to do this. Over this last years, we've been putting the pieces together. And so my original thinking around education, your question was that we would compete with universities and it would get them to bring down their pricing. But what I've realized is that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is we are going to put universities out of business. Now, this won't happen over the next year or 5 years or 9 years, but over the next 15, 25, 30 years, it's going to happen. They cannot compete with our model at any level. They cannot produce the types of students or graduates that we are going to produce, because their structure just isn't right for it. and they don't have the wherewithal to be able to pivot and change their models because they are too bloated, and they would collapse under their own weight if they tried to mimic our model. And so my belief has changed from we'll compete with them and get them to bring down their price to we're going to eventually eliminate them. Was someone coming off of mute? It was Abdullah. I couldn't see. Was that you? Were you going to ask a question? I think I maybe saw you raise your hand too earlier. Yeah, Abdullah, you can come off of mute, or maybe I have to bring you off. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
okay, there you go. Yep, I just brought you off. I can hear you now.
Where?
Yeah, Abdullah, yeah, you can go ahead.
Where?
Did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
does this program offer digital designing and NPU architecture?
I'm sorry, ask that one more time.
Does this Pega6 program offer digital design and NPU architecture?
Yes, that is part of the product builds.
So, can I access these courses online?
No, because this is a hybrid program where our accelerators are located in Boulder, Colorado, and essentially it's every other day is in person, and on those in-between days you're working when you're in person, you're working with your teams to build the software, and then on the every other day when you're not in the office, you're working remotely with your teams to build. So there are no courses. These are actually commercial grade product builds that you are doing with your teams.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. No problem. All right, and then okay, so going through more questions here. If a student doesn't get a job after the year at Pega6, where do they end up compared to a traditional grad? So two things I'll say to that. As I mentioned, for those who didn't hear, we are lining up employment guarantees for the graduates for the upcoming cohort. We have 75% of those guarantees signed up, and we're working on the other 25% now, such that before you would even join Pega6, you have a guaranteed job with one of those companies once you graduate. But having said that, if you didn't get a job because for whatever reason, I mean, the company goes out of business or something, which they're all well funded, so that wouldn't happen. But just for whatever reason it might be, if you didn't get a job, we refund 100% of your tuition. So you would not be out any money. It would simply have been, you can think of it as a gap year where you gained unbelievably valuable skills, such that then if you wanted to go to college, you could, but I honestly don't think anyone ever would. In my opinion, is that anyone ever would after you've had your eyes opened, to this approach. For joining, the attendance form, workshop. Just see what is the benefit of Pega6 over being a self-taught developer? Another good question. So there are two things. One, they are not exclusively separate paths, right? Just like when you're at a job, you'll still teach yourself things, right? Whether you're using YouTube or Stack Overflow or or Claude or Claude Code or whatever it might be, you can still be self-taught while also going through Pega6. In fact, a lot of people probably will. They'll be so passionate about what they're doing during the day and what they're building that they'll be hungry for more. So those are not necessarily exclusive paths. But to what I think the spirit of your question is, which is a person who was only self-taught versus a person who went to Pega6, there are two meaningful differences. One, when you are teaching yourself, there are many things, and this applies to anyone in any context, but there are many things that you don't know. And so you're only able to teach yourself within the context of what you currently understand. Versus at Pega6, because you are going to have the equivalent of bosses who have done this for a decade plus, they have a tremendous amount of wisdom, accumulated wisdom that they can bestow upon you as they're helping you at those failure points, in ways that being self-taught, you're not always going to know the question to ask your AI to give you the answer that would have the same effect. And then also, Pega6, from the employers that I showed on that slide and those that have guaranteed employment, it actually has value, right? Self-taught is, oh, okay, it's YouTube. So that doesn't, you taught yourself on YouTube and just online and with AI. So I don't know what, as an employer, that doesn't tell me anything right off the bat. And so, there's not like a stamp of approval that comes along with that. But for Pega6, again, the early employers who have endorsed us, including the ones who are doing the guarantees, are like, no, we love what these guys are doing. So if you come out with a Pega6 stamp, that means something, right? That conveys an incredible amount of information of the skill that you have because it says Pega6. So that's the benefit of Pega6 over being self-taught. But again, they aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. What is the acceptance rate for this program? We don't have an acceptance rate yet because this is going to be our first cohort. But having said that, we are going to be selective, but selective in a very different sense than the way universities are. Universities are selective in that because they don't provide their graduates, their students, with any skills, with any professional skills, technical or otherwise. The one thing they do provide is a stamp, right? This person got into and graduated from Tulane or Michigan or Brown. So that means, employer, there's someone who you can interview. And so in that world, the lower your acceptance rate, the more exclusive your filter looks, right? Because you're not adding value to your graduates, to your students. All you're doing is putting a stamp on them. And so what matters then is the more valuable your stamp is, the more valuable you are, because that's the only value you provide as an institution. And so the more exclusive you are, the more people you reject, even if they would kill it at your college, even if they would absolutely crush it, they are incentivized to say no so that their acceptance rate is low and their stamp looks prestigious. But for us, we actually skill you. We turn you from coal into a diamond. And so employers, what they look for from us isn't a stamp. They look for the skills that we are providing that no other post-secondary institution does or honestly can. And so in our case, we don't need to have our acceptance rate look exclusive. What's important, far more important, is that our graduates are the best employees on the market, bar none, 10 times better. And so for our acceptance rate, we want to accept as many people who can excel in our program, which isn't everyone, because not everyone is made to be a product builder or or a software developer, or product manager, or product designer, or whatever career path. Not everyone is meant to be that career path. But if you are, If that is something that you want to pursue and would be good at, then we want you at Pega6 because we can make you the best version of that. And in this case, with our first accelerator being the product builder accelerator, we can make you if you are well suited to be a product builder, we can make you the best version of that. Does this answer that? Are there grades, exams at Pega6? Current high school senior who just finished 4 years of studying, LOL. So there are not grades and exams. And the reason is because not one human being in the history of the workforce has taken an exam or received a grade. And what we are doing here is preparing you for the workforce by replicating year one of employment. And so what the feedback mechanism is for you is what the feedback mechanism is at work, which are 360-degree performance reviews. Every other month, we're going to be doing 360-degree performance reviews on Pega6 students. So that's 360 degrees means the person is doing a self-review of how they think they're doing. The peers who they've been working with do a performance review, and their boss does a performance review. And that's where, in the world of work, and therefore in the world of Pega6, that is where you learn, putting aside the day-to-day feedback you'd be obviously getting on performance, but that is where you really cement what your weaknesses are that you need to fortify, and what your strengths are that you need to double down on. So there are no grades or exams because there aren't any in real life. Also, will big tech thing accept Pega6 if I'm applying for a job there? The answer to that is, I don't know yet. We can say with certainty that the companies who have said, absolutely, we'd hire from here, the ones I listed on the slide, none of those were FANG ones. For no reason that we haven't talked to any of the FANGs yet at the FANG companies. But those ones on the slide that I showed, as well as the ones providing the performance guarantee, the employment guarantees, that's why we went and got the guarantees, was so that we could say, yes, these companies, not only will they accept Pega6, but they've actually guaranteed that they will hire a Pega6 grad. Now, all the skills and everything that we're building are unbelievably valuable and desired by FANG, but will they accept it from Pega6 eventually? Yes, because everyone's going to want Pega6 grads. But right now, as we're new, I don't know. All right, and they seem to have made it through all of the questions. So if anyone wants to get in touch with us, you can go on the website and pega6.com and just reach out that way, or you can email me at the letter J at pega6.com. But great, but thank you everybody, and go crush it at your hackathon.